My name is Donnelly, father and husband.
Can you tell me a little bit about your own mental health journey?
Yeah, so you know what? I've been lucky. I've been one of those people that, in my own experience, have not had to deal with a lot of mental health issues. Um, but in 2020, when everybody was kind of going through their thing, everybody kind of had their thing. Right before COVID came, my family was kind of hit with its first real struggle with mental health.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so oddly enough, it starts with something that you typically don't hear with mental health, and that's strep throat. So strep throat, just like I'm sure you've had or many of your listeners have had, it's not just a virus where you get a scratchy throat. It's actually a bacterial infection. When the body gets a bacterial infection, typically what happens is the white blood cells are released, the body's natural immune response happens, and they go to attack the infection. And then hopefully after about 4 to 5 days, people get to feeling better and the infection eventually subsides. Um, for some people, children, once the infection is gone and the white blood cells have done their job, they actually don't disengage. And instead of attacking of the infection that's not there anymore, they actually go after healthy cells. And as a result, it causes brain inflammation. And as a result, unfortunately, that's kind of where our story starts.
Yeah, and you also wrote a book about this. What was it like getting all your thoughts, feelings, everything down on the page?
So I wrote Navigating PANDAS. It was kind of a self-reflection for me because kind of like what we talked about, I hadn't had a lot of experiences with my own mental health, like challenges with it. And then when this happened to my son and I saw him struggle with his own mental psychiatric symptoms because of this autoimmune condition, as a father, I wanted to be there and be the strength and the rock to make sure that he's getting all the treatment that he needs. But to be honest, it was challenging for me because I was too busy trying to make him better. I wasn't doing a lot of self-care. And as a result, I don't think it made the situation any better because I was kind of starting to struggle on my own end while at the same time watching him do it. So the book for me was very therapeutic. It allowed me to get all of these things out. Um, and it's certainly helped me kind of process everything by getting it out on paper.
What are some of the things you've learned from your son?
Well, number one, resilience. What he went through was really challenging. When you get strep throat and then all of a sudden you pick up pandas as a result of it, after about 3 weeks you start to see the symptoms, and the symptoms start with something as easy as maybe a little bit of OCD, or in our case it was defiance. But then it started to kind of snowball, and every week got worse and worse, to the point where defiance was replaced with rage. Um, OCD was enhanced by something like eating. When I think of OCD, I think of hand washing and some of the things that we're all comfortable with. Um, but in his case, he would sneak food into his room to the point where we had to lock the food away from keeping him from getting in the middle of the night. Delusions. He started thinking about stories that didn't happen, and honestly, he went through a lot. And it took 2 years and a very smart wife, which I happen to have, to really kind of hone in on the diagnosis. And during this time, I really watched him kind of go through the worst parts and back. And luckily, we found the right doctors. Luckily, we found the right treatment. And if you were to ask him today, which by the way, he is thriving and doing excellent and has school, he's doing really like straight A's. We just found out he's already got straight A's. Um,
Whoa.
I was worried at one point a few years ago whether or not we were going to be able to fall asleep. I was afraid that maybe one day he might take his own life because he's dealing with all this going on in his mind and he didn't know, nobody knew how to treat it. And today he's just a resilient boy. He knows what happened in the past, but to be honest with you, I think he forgets a lot of it just because of the inflammation that was going on. But if you were to look at him today, you would just see, wow, what a great kid.
Yeah, and with your story, how does it feel to be getting your story out there and helping people?
So that's really my favorite part. As I mentioned, the book was therapeutic, but if we were to go back to my high school days many years ago, I was probably voted least likely to read a book, let alone write one. And I had to get this out. And to be honest with you, the feedback, it's great if somebody says, I loved your book. I really get a lot out of it when somebody messages me on social media saying they need help. And I'm not a doctor. I don't do a diagnosis. I don't, but I listen. And if there are symptoms or common denominators that were similar to what we had, I at least point them in the right direction of who they can talk to, whether it's a support group. There's several on Facebook that quite frankly saved us. One of them is called Pandas Parents, and it's just a group of people that all were going through the same thing from all around the world. And once you get in a group like that, then you find out, okay, what specialists can we go see? What do we ask? What questions do we do? And it just helps. And if we can help one person, which we already have, um, I don't mind doing this the rest of my life if we can help people overcome this disease.
I know for me, I live with bipolar disorder too, and my support system is my wife and kids. But a lot of people, focus on me and treatment and stuff like that, but not necessarily them. And they're going through the same thing. So you talked about like the Facebook group and stuff. How important is it for the support system to have a support system?
I didn't recognize it until probably about a year into it, but it was needed. Um, there's nothing that I can do as a father. There's nothing I can do as a husband to help unless I'm making sure I'm kind of taking care of myself too at the same time. Um, it was hard, especially during that time where there was no answers. And after 13 specialists, it just wears on you because you lose faith in the medical system. You lose faith in ever being able to find a solution or a cure. Um, so challenging to say the least. But at the same time, when you could bring hope to all these other people that are going through the same thing, it kind of makes the journey fulfilling that we had to go through it.
What are some of the things that motivate you?
I'd say perspective has changed. I mean, I've had a career in medical device since I got out of college. We make devices that help patients with chronic pain, and it's a very fulfilling job. I love doing that. Um, when I do decide to step away from that and retire, I want to spend 100% of my focus on bringing awareness to pandas and to bring education to the physician level because there's still a lot of physicians that don't know how to treat it. And more importantly, we've got to find better ways to test for it. We've got to find better ways to treat it. And those answers are out there, and there are physicians that specialize in this that are working on those right now. I want to do my part by making sure that gets known.
Yeah, what should everyone know about pandas?
It's common. It actually affects about 1 in 200 kids. Um, the difference between pandas and say some other mental disorder is pandas starts about 2 or 3 weeks after onset of strep throat. So, whoever's version of normal is or whatever definition of normal is with your child, if all of a sudden you notice after strep throat that, symptoms of OCD or tics or, delusions, whatever, if all of a sudden they're starting and they're getting intense, definitely reach out to somebody early. And if you can't find the answers that you're looking for, you have to raise your hand and ask for help, whether that be online. If you're not getting the answers from your pediatrician, which is the first line of defense, you have to go to a different one because there are ways to treat it, and sooner the better when it comes to those.
What would you say to any families going through what you went through?
You're not alone. That's the biggest part is you truly do kind of feel like you are, especially when you don't get the answers. You're not alone. And if you get on these support groups, you hear similar stories, you hear similar challenges, you hear parents from on the other side of the world struggling with the exact same thing that don't know what to do. So you're definitely not alone.
Where do you want to see your mission, after you retire the next, 5 to 10 years?
So I personally would like to see every state covering PANDAS or covering intravenous immunoglobulin treatment, which is a long word, but it stands, it's IVIG is what it's referred to. Essentially, this is healthy plasma cells that are spun down and they're done through the IV. And what it does is it allows, in simple terms, it kind of allows the brain to kind of do a Control-Alt-Delete on its immune system. And that's kind of what brought our son back. It's very expensive. It's hard to get approved through insurance. But it honestly brought our son back. It helped his symptoms disappear. And it's out there and it's being used in all kinds of autoimmune conditions. But it really helped pandas. And there's actually multiple states now covering it. But we have to do a lot better. There's still a lot of states that don't even have it as a law yet.
How can people reach out to you and learn more?
So you can go on my website, which is navigatingpandas.com. I'm also on all social media, just as Donnelly. I'm the one that's wearing the too tight of shirt, and my face is really red in all the pictures, so you can't miss me. I promise I will respond to you. We are getting a lot of people reaching out now because of the book, and I love that. We will get you a solution. And I'll also tell you I don't have the answers to everything, so I might refer you to support groups that can help you. But I promise we'll find someone for you to talk to help you, because again, you're not alone.